I think all of you have been spending a lot of time sitting down, so why don't we all stand up and do some yoga for a change? Let's all stand up and do 5 minutes of yoga. I'm serious! How many of you have done any yoga today? Let's have a show of hands. That's the only yoga you have done for the day. Alright. 30 seconds of yoga. Hands up. To the right. Turn around. Thank you very much. Please now. At least now I should get an applause. Good. So, we've got an amazing set of co-panelists here. Just wanted to do a show of hands so that we all can calibrate a little bit. How many people in the audience are entrepreneurs? And how many of you are fintech entrepreneurs? Okay, how many of you selling to enterprise? Not just the entrepreneurs, in general. How many of you selling to enterprises? And how many of you are on the enterprise side and looking to buy software or services? Okay, so there are some customers here, by the way. I hope you guys made a note of those hands. So, hi everyone, my name is Sanjay Swamy. I'm a seed stage venture capitalist based in Bangalore. I like to say I'm an entrepreneur and my startup is my VC fund, Prime Ventures, and we've done a lot of work in the financial services space. Just have a quick round of introductions from each of our panelists, starting with you, Sanjay.
I'm an angel investor, investing typically tech companies, but have done across diverse investment from QSR to medical device, and happy to be part of the Fintegrate.
Hi, I'm with Innoving Capital. So we are a primary venture debt player across Asia with coverage in India, China, and Southeast Asia. And before joining Innoving, I spent 20 years with on the financial services side, more kind of operating roles.
My name is Alan Liskey. I'm the COO at Zone Startups. We run 7 programs like this in different parts of the world, a couple in Canada, a number of them here with a J, and we'll soon be launching in Vietnam. Our focus in terms of startups and the investing that we do is primarily focused on B2B companies.
I am Sudeep Rao. We run IndoSage between San Francisco and Bangalore. It's an early stage technology fund. Love taking risk and love building companies.
Terrific. So as you can see, we've got pretty much the whole life cycle of investment all the way through taking companies. We've got Sanjay doing very early stage angel rounds. I do the seed. Sudhir does the A's. And when your companies grow up and need debt capital, we've got Ashish here. And when you need to find customers, we've got Alan here. So if we can't answer your question, nobody can answer them. I think that's the bottom line. So let's start with you, Sanjay. Selling to enterprises, right? Companies based in India selling to enterprises. Traditionally, has not been a very attractive market for product companies in India, right? But a lot is changing also in India. So what are you seeing, and what are the views of early stage companies selling to enterprises?
I've been on the enterprise side all along. Personally, I've been selling my earlier company, which I exited, selling it to Indian CIOs and CTOs of the large enterprises. Selling to CIOs and CTOs is a very different stuff. They don't buy on email or phone or putting it on an e-commerce site. It does not work. So idea is most of the startups when I meet across, they are great product companies, but have a limited knowledge in terms of how do you get access in front of this kind of important people and compete against the large brands from IBMs of the world and make their presence felt. Having said that, there have been great successes also where Indian homegrown softwares have taken the stride and competed against the biggies. But still, I find across the biggest challenge is the price points. Most of them don't know how to price their products. They don't even have wherewithal of whether how valuable their product is. and how do you go to the market with the right value proposition. So these are the basic inherent challenges, but I think we are getting there with a lot of these accelerators, incubators, which are trying to do that.
Terrific. So do you see yourself doing any angel stage enterprise software?
I've been over a dozen B2B tech startups, and most of them have started scaling up. In fact, half of them would have crossed across Series A and B kind of.
Super. So Sudhir, from your perspective, and you said you look at companies which do a lot of tech-based innovations as well, but selling to the enterprise in India, particularly with the financial services sector, whether it's to banks or NBFCs or the new payment banks and such opportunities, what do you see as opportunities? What do you see as some of the challenges the companies face in the early stage?
Yeah, I think most importantly, access is a big issue. But more than access or getting to know somebody who's going to buy, is really mapping the buying process. We all sort of build companies thinking about sales and thinking about my product, but spend very little time about understanding the buyer and the buying maturity. In innovation, in areas where we're trying to do some leading edge stuff, most likely a client doesn't understand it. Most likely they're not going to use it in the near term. So this is, firstly you have to think it's not a 100-meter dash. It's not going to happen very quickly. You need a sense of understanding that you will be enterprise grade. It's a good thing that, at least in India now, most banks and insurance companies have set up their accelerators because they're dying inside. Right? So there is a lot of atrophy inside. Therefore, they need to go and talk to people outside. So constructing teams, more than the founders, I think the success comes when you actually create teams that understand the buyer. If you have that incorporated, get a co-founder if necessary, you will then be able to shorten that length of time that it takes. I mean, otherwise it will take you, anywhere between 3 and 5 years before you are really enterprise grade. So if you want to shorten that, then you have to change team. It's not going to come from typically the founder itself.
Interesting. So Alan, from the Canadian perspective, and in many cases, enterprise sales is enterprise sales across the world. As you look to showcase, young companies to buyers or CIOs and large enterprises, what are some of the tricks that have worked, and some of the lessons you could share?
Yeah, so I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We focus primarily on B2B startups, and we work very closely with corporate partners. And the great thing is, those companies will come in, the banks will tell us that, hey, you know what, we're looking for anybody that will solve these problems for us. So if you find startups that help us with understanding what our customers are purchasing and give us line item purchase data, that's really valuable. Then when we screen companies, we're able to find them and say, wait a second, you know what? A bunch of the banks have told us that this is a really expensive problem for them. We think there's an opportunity, and then we can act as that buffer between the startup and the corporate, because a lot of the times they don't understand pricing. They don't understand that they're actually delivering a lot more value than they initially came in at. And they also don't understand the buying cycle. So we can do a nice job of filling that gap and being a little bit of a buffer. We'll sometimes sit in on the pitches that the startups do, and the corporates will tell us that, hey, you know what, those guys are really doing some great things, which is nice. Or the next best thing is they'll tell us they're barking up the wrong tree. There are 20 companies that pitched us yesterday doing the exact same thing. Why don't they think about taking a little bit of a different approach on it? And the smart startups do that. The smart ones pivot, they change, they adjust when they hear that kind of feedback. And eventually they say, gee, you know what, I used to go after this market, you told me this, and so have every other bank I've spoken with. We think we're going to make a change here, and then you get a much better opportunity.
And what do you see as a typical sales cycle selling to enterprises for small?
Okay, so you told me this would get a bit of a laugh in the audience. So, it's funny because we have our fintech companies talking to the Canadian banks, and I don't know if any of our Canadian banking friends are still here. it's a very highly regulated market in Canada. At the end of the day, there really is a ton of competition. And so the banks, as a result, don't need to be as competitive as the US counterparts. So selling in Canada, if you're doing any kind of enterprise sales that's potentially touching customers, it's a year and a half before you even got a chance of a pilot. We've seen some of our Indian-based startups come in, and yes, it can take longer than that, and some of my startups might correct me, but we've actually seen it happen faster in some cases here in India. Most of our Canadian startups just sell directly into the States because there is a competitive market there. You can start a bank in the United States, you can grow it for a couple of years, and then you can sell it, and as a founder of a bank, you can do okay. You just can't do that in Canada. And so our startups are able to have a much shorter sales cycle when they're selling into a more competitive marketplace. And I think that's a key thing for the fintech ecosystem as a whole.
It sounds really scary. Don't try to go and sell in Canada. I guess at least in the early days till you prove it, right? So Ashish, you guys are at Innovin, and you do venture debt financing, which typically only applies when the company has hit a certain level of maturity, right? And so it'd be helpful for some of the startups here to understand what stage does it even make sense to think about venture debt as an alternative? When is it a preferred alternative from the company's perspective? And how should they look at debt capital versus equity or other forms of financing?
So, I'll just do a very quick on what venture debt is, and then so venture debt obviously comes in, it's a different asset class. In the capital structure, it will come in, above the equity. So typically venture debt, globally, would start coming in once the company has already reached a stage where they have some institutional funding. So typically in India, it would be like Series A companies. And then once you have raised Series A, there is some junior capital. That's the time venture debt becomes interesting because what from a founder or early stage investor standpoint, typically, if you want to raise another $5 million and you can load some venture debt, you can reduce dilution. You could increase the runway before you go for the next round of funding, and if your company is doing well, generally you're growing on a geometric progression, so hopefully you can get better valuation. So typically very tough to get venture debt in very early stage. There, clearly you need to go to starting here, then moving here and there. But venture debt becomes more viable once you at least raise some institutional funding. So that's where we end up coming. So are there like VCs, we often love to brag about our investments and keep announcing them. Do the same rules apply typically in venture capital? In venture debt, are your deals publicly announced? So we typically do announce. In India, we would have done live to date almost 150 transactions, 120 odd companies, and across spaces. So we do announce. In some cases, we might not announce if a company is in the middle of a raise. But generally, we have a fairly wide spread, and especially even in the fintech space. Right from payments to some of the enterprise, kind of sales guys, to some of the platforms which started as B2B, but then eventually pivoted to, also having an NBFC to help provide financing. So we've had our fair exposure on the, fintech side.
So what would be some of the companies that we should recognize?
So, let's say in the payment space, we did, MobiKwik. We have B2B kind of, off business, power to SME. So there's, quite a number of fintech players we have had done some business with.
Thanks. So Sanjay, coming back to the main topic here of selling to enterprises. In the early stage when you're looking at an entrepreneur, how do you decide, this guy can, this team can crack it and can actually sell to an enterprise in India? Because broadly the concern in India with the banks, especially as they are the customers, is no matter which way you look at it, there haven't been too many companies that have sold more than say $10 million of revenue into the banking sector in India. And they are just very tough customers to deal with, right? So as an angel investor, And it's a big leap of faith for you to say, this company can actually deliver the company product. Any tips for the audience?
Classic example.
The examples would be great.
Yeah. So there's a company called Stigo. When the founder came and pitched across, they said we are a mobility company. We are a diamond dozen. I mean, why do you pitch across? 6-7 months again came back. So there is no difference. Why would I invest? So he came back saying that we do image compression while we do across the mobility solution. So he started explaining what that compression is. Then we moved saying that can you do only compression as a company, right? So we found out. So that had a huge unfair advantage. Nobody was doing compression where there is zero quality loss. You reduce the size of the image by 90%. So started working with the founder for next 3-4 months. Built it to a level where we can fund it. Finally, we did it through Indian Angel network. And now the company is grown to a level where it does not require further money and it's growing exponentially. And the reason for that is we changed the pricing model. That company was initially a perpetual license, they would give unlimited use. We said this is not going to work. We worked hard with the founder saying that can you build out a model where there is a predictable revenue. Then they came out with user model, monthly model. Nothing worked out. Finally, they ended up with per image based pricing. And that gave them a huge advantage. And most of the enterprises waited for 3-6 months before and after the pilot saying that, can they get a fixed kind of value because most enterprises don't like variability. But the guys had enough money from investors in the bank to sustain, saying that we'll do only a variable pricing. And that helped. And today, many of the customers are doing over 3 or 4 crore images. And it's like continuous, cash inflows coming in.
I could see that the 3 people who raised their hands saying they're buyers are the ones who are listening to you the most. So, it's good.
It's the guys have unfair advantage. There is no company. Now they have done video compression. The guys are on a road. They are now also doing medical images also. So, idea is once you have a great tech story, you just need to build a business model around it. That gives that escape velocity.
But I think you made a couple of points that I also mentioned in the earlier session that I had, which is, you have to discover your pricing very early. Don't think that, the first customer, I'll give them a free deal just for the sake of claiming that I have a customer, and then after that, you can never increase the price, right? And unfortunately, what will happen is the guy who negotiated the deal with you will then move from HDFC Bank to ICICI Bank and will be sitting on the other side negotiating again saying, I know exactly what the other guy
This
wants.
is a very small world.
Yes.
And everybody does their checks. What you say is perfectly right.
So the second part of what you said also is important, which is if you're a Me-Too company, you don't have much of a chance of succeeding. It has to be, I like to use the word aspirin versus a vitamin. Because when a large enterprise is buying from a small startup, it has to be solving a pain point that they can't wait for IBM to solve 4 years later. Right? And that is the only reason they will buy it from an early stage startup. And so they're a little further along in the journey in your case, right? You typically invest post $1 million, $2 million type of revenue, but that time there is some validation of the business of the product itself. But then going from that stage to the $10 million stage, companies end up having to do a few different things. And what are some of the inflection points that you see for them to change gears?
I think being finite is a very crucial switch in the mind that you need to do. Getting to 2 million, typically you can float where you need to and get there. It's like a what we call platform. Every company thinks it's a platform. Every startup stage, the first 7 years, we think we're a platform. But nobody buys any tickets on at Victoria Terminus to enter the platform. You go there for a journey very clearly from point A to point B. Defining that point A to point B for a particular enterprise, and can you get similar buyers for that journey? That's when you have a right. So scale has very different sort of tenets as opposed to start. I think 2 to 100 is a very, very finite journey. You have to drop stuff if you look at the size of a rocket, it's very wide in the base. By the time you're landing on the moon, it's a very little piece that lands up over there. You can look at the Lego rocket, you can see how it's
I hope somebody is taking note because I wish I was. These are amazing analogies he's using.
So, drop stuff, that's the risk. The risk is actually, if you're an entrepreneur, take risk. Take risk on your bet. There's only one bet. I have $1 left. It's extremely important. Like, I can't take multiple bets. So, very often I think entrepreneurs don't have that muscle to actually take the next bet. And so they start de-risking. And in de-risking, that's too early a stage to de-risk.
I mean, on that example, there are so many deep moments where some of the largest enterprises will offer, take this 60 lakhs, give me a perpetual license, take this 70 lakhs. The founder will fight with us, saying that there is money and you are not allowing us. Saying nothing new, we are not signing contract, you have got 2 years money in your bank, you can pay salaries, just wait, they will come back. So ideally, as Sudhir said, you need to develop those muscles to really fight with these enterprises to ensure that you gain your price point.
I think there's a great thing that goes along with de-risking a business like that is you lower your potential returns when you're right, because you can turn it into a services business very easily. And, we see founders at inception, right? We're starting the companies and then we try and take a look at which ones we think are going to be the winners at the end of the day. And a lot of that goes back to the founders and will they persevere? Will they figure out that one single thing that they're great at? And do they have the fortitude to say no to a deal that's going to cause them to throw their pricing out of whack? And, we do see founders being, just saying, oh yeah, I took that services contract just so I could, pay bills for the rest of the month. And we get that as investors, but that's not going to deliver the 10x returns you need to return a big chunk of capital from your fund. So
And that's also a slippery slope, right? Once you start going down that path, right? This is just another contract, and before you know it, you're a services company.
And I'd like to add, when you go finite and you reduce size of market, you start out typically wide-eyed and we want to do $1 billion business, etc. But we lose the essence, that is, you have to be a dominant player in the place that you want to play. So try and get 30% market share earlier than later. If it means you reduce the size of the market, it's okay. Be the most dominant player in your product, your offer, that the customer on the other side cannot but take it from you. Then you keep expanding market after it.
That's interesting. So, Ashish, as you're evaluating companies, right, that is obviously very risky from your perspective as well, right? From a VC perspective, we are in the early stages, intended to be in the game of risk, but you guys are less so at the later stage. So these things that we've been talking about in terms of companies doing less is more, things like that, how do they matter in your evaluation of the companies? And how much of that needs to be backed up with the real business?
See, some of the things are table stakes. What you would look at, whether you come in at early stage or we come in. So how is the team, what problem they're trying to solve, what product they build, product market fit, all of that. But for us, typically, venture debts, especially, the credit risk is fairly high, not as high as angel investing. But essentially, we need the companies because most of these companies would be losing money burning cash as they're scaling up. So we need to hang our hat on the ability of the company to raise the next round. So if I'm giving let's say a 3-year loan, at best, most of these companies would have 15, 18 months, cash in the bank, right? So we have to look very hard, saying based on what they're trying to solve, how would institutional VC look at that company? I mean, will this company actually be able to raise kind of the next round of funding? So that's one thing we would definitely look at. So there we have to put a little bit of an equity hat. The other thing we look at is in a downside scenario, there's still maybe the market is not very large, but if they really build something that is valuable, would somebody buy them out? even if, and given that we have a lot of junior capital, typically, if a company can find a home, generally we can, kind of protect our investment. The last thing is, especially on the enterprise selling side, these companies typically won't burn that much cash. So its issue is more in terms of, can you actually, we're talking about enterprise sales, can you put in a couple of big wins? Because while some of these enterprise sales cycles are pretty long, but the second one is faster than the first, and the third one is a lot faster than the second. So if you have a couple of credible players where you have been able to get a foot in the door, and more importantly, you have shown some increase getting deeper with that client. Because typically all the large banks and financial institutions, they're talking about fintech. So, they may not even know, but there is a mandate from the top saying, please do something. So they would try to test you out, and eventually, if you really are solving the problem, chances are they'll give you more business. So if you can prove that with a credible, player, you are able to go deeper, I think that gives us a lot of conviction that the same problem, is there with 50 other players, and you can basically scale up.
Perfect. I think one of the things you also mentioned here, sort of implicitly, is the nature of these businesses are, once you're well entrenched with the customer, it's extremely sticky. So if you're there and you've proven that you can go deeper and deeper and expand with the customer, you're there forever.
So just to add across, many of the times I've seen across this enterprise startup, they sell to startups. Then they are stuck with money, the startup goes defunct. Selling it to, for example, ICICI Bank, chances of losing money or non-payment happening are not there. But they will show us revenues, saying that they've sold to 20 startups. Saying that these customers, and end of the day, revenues
19 of which you have funded separately.
So idea is the genuine customers are large enterprises, and the way I look upon it is a lot of the foreign brands, because of the brands like SAP, they sell products to Indian enterprises so well. And it's just, we just need to bring up our game so that we can compete against those big boys. And it's not about talent, it's just about how do you position the market for all these CIO CTOs, right?
So let's switch gears a little bit, maybe turn it over to the audience and see if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask. Okay. Yes, please. You tell us your name and company and then ask the question.
Hi, I'm Sindhuri and I'm the founder of Akshari, which specializes in user experiences. What kind of business models do you see, which might strike a winning formula, if there is one, in the way fintech is growing in India?
Business models for the enterprise company, for the startup?
Yes, in the fintech space, on which you would want to bet your money on.
Entrepreneurs who will not lose money, that's a winning formula.
One requirement is you don't lose money. Alan?
Yeah, I think if your sales pitch is that you're going to your customers saying, I'm going to help you earn more money and generate more revenue, it's a much easier story than we're going to reduce your costs a little bit here. People will pay for revenue.
The other point I will add is, while customer experience and sales, those are things which people focus on. There's a lot of stuff which is not as glamorous. You go to a company, look at their collection processes. The kind of savings that you can do through collection analytics platforms. So there's this bunch of stuff that is, in large financial services companies, particularly on the retail side, where, as long as you can prove that you can take out, the same thing I would say even in terms of credit. So if you look at a P&L of any financial institution, credit is a big line. That can, if you can demonstrate that you can save 25 basis points, by applying better credit tools. So there are a lot of spaces where the question is, can you actually prove it? Because a lot of times what happens is, if you are on the other side, you keep getting a lot of startups talking the same language. So somebody is talking about, I'm analyzing 500 data points or 5,000 data points. You tend to get confused. My message is, if you look at one simple problem without overcomplicating it and try to solve that, to I think Sudhir's point, I think your chances of success are a lot higher.
like business models which are allopathic, not homeopathic. Typically what happens in enterprise is that you start solving the pain of your customer, and therefore you need to get to know more about the customer, etc. You don't go with the pill, which is very definitive about its delivery. So there's a big mismatch. So you become a services company almost, because you're going to keep dancing with this large enterprise. You have to become a flea and turn that elephant around. So it's a bit of a, so I like business models where the entrepreneurs are extremely clear, very commando-like, they know what they give, and that's it. If they have a no, they can walk out. So you must know what you don't do, what you shall not do. Even the enterprises are, beasts. They are very complex beasts with cultures and multiple sets of people from multiple different places. The buying cycles, why they are 18 months is because they don't even get a calendar meeting for 3 months. So they're extremely inefficient, I can guarantee that to you. And that's the opportunity. But go with your clarity of what you want to deliver. It's going to be one shot only.
So what Sudhir says, right? Typically, allopathy says gives instant relief. It never says it removes the disease. It will always say instant relief. So if you can do instant relief.
I'm not talking about the relief, but literally, actually, it's a very clear delivery process.
Right.
Very finite.
I love your analogy.
So I use aspirin vitamin and he used allopathy homeopathy. Just to reassure you all, this is a fintech conference, not a healthcare conference. But on the topic of business models, I think there were some points made earlier about understanding the value to the customer, about pricing things right, and about testing the pricing early, right? So make sure that you're building something that is going to build a big company here, right? I mean, I often ask entrepreneurs, are there 100 companies that will pay you $1 million a year? Right? It may take you 7 to 9 years to get those 100 companies, but is it even conceivable that that will happen? Or is it 1,000 companies paying you $100,000 a year? Right? Because if you have to build a large company, that has to happen, right? And this, in terms of buzzwords, clearly, we all like SaaS businesses the most, I would think, right? Because you get the benefit of compounding, it still grows as you add more value to the customer. But the holy grail to me is actually if you can pull off a transactional SaaS business, where you do get a bit of sort of steady revenue, but you also get upside from higher usage. Any other questions? People are scared now that all 5 of us answered the first question. Come on, you guys.
What do you mean by transactional SaaS?
Oops, I walked into that one, did that. So, a service where there is a recurring fee that you're charging for the use of the platform, but there is also, for example, in the image company, right? There they could have, say, it's $10,000 per month as a recurring fee, plus, and that might include, let's say, processing 100,000 images, but if you cross that, you get, on a per image basis, right? So that would be, there is a transactional element to the business, but there is a SaaS element to the business as well.
But in fintech, I would add another flavor. In fintech, you can actually have an ad valorem charge, right? So a SaaS model with an ad valorem, which is what banks have been doing for many years. They take 200-300 basis points off everything. They build their business on an ad valorem basis.
Plus 15 cents.
Plus everything, yeah, plus bank charges, plus da. That's the model. Transaction SaaS. That's banking actually.
Be a bank, I think, is what we're hearing.
Be a bank, yeah.
Basically fixed and variable.
Yeah. Ad valorem.
I think there is a gentleman.
The idea of variable is that it has some proportion to the value you're delivering.
Just a quick question from
You
me.
identify yourself and your company, please.
Yeah, I'm Kunal Kalati from, and I represent ICICI Lombard. Quick question on your view on startups not entering into exclusive agreement and not entering into or getting the pricing right. What is your view from the perspective of an enterprise? How do they maintain the competitive advantage of being an early adopter or being the first one to shape the product per se, which was not the case earlier because they didn't even identify the problem statement at all. And once you spend that kind of a year, 6 months, a year of time in resources to build the product and then the competitor adopt it in the next 2 months. So,
How do
He is
you?
asking how does enterprise lock the startup?
Not just log the startup. I mean, how you enterprise maintain the competitive advantage?
Then what's
Oh,
going on
that
here?
kind of-
You want an exclusive, which means you lock the startup.
Like that.
Yeah, we all have experience. I've been seller also. Go ahead, Sudeep.
I mean, we encourage that. We don't have a problem. It depends at which stage the product development cycle's at. If you're extremely early and you're taking the risk, undoubtedly you should lock up. And I, as a product developer in my life, I would give exclusivity for some time. Because you're taking the risk, not me. You're almost like the VC at that time. And if you want exclusivity for some time, I must have long enough legs, that's all, in terms of when will I recover for my IP, which would have either gotten jointly developed or IP could rest with me, but I would give you exclusivity. And we backed many an enterprise that stepped out of exclusivity, and we've had phenomenal success. Where at the moment they drop the exclusivity, we become investors. But we respect that the entrepreneur actually gave up, but stayed in the course, spent time, built a really enterprise-grade piece of software that can go to 200 more enterprises of that class.
So just adding to back in Canada, with 5 major banks, we had one of our portfolio companies, they were asked to provide an exclusive license. So we said, okay, we talked to the CEO, said that's fine. Odds of you closing out all 5 banks in the next 2 years is just about nothing. We could probably do 1 or 2. So increase the price so that you're reflecting the fact that you're not going out and selling to these guys. So it was the equivalent of selling to maybe 1.5 more banks, which was a fair deal for them. It was a 2-year exclusivity, and then guess what? They went and sold to the U.S. Counterparts because the exclusivity was limited geographically. So a little bit was okay as long as the duration is short enough and a price is paid to reflect the value of that exclusivity.
I mean, if I make just one point is, if you are an enterprise and your worry is, well, I do all the hard work with the startup, take the risk, and once the product is kind of developed, my competitor is going to just, I would say definitely that is true, but not many people remember the second or the third player to market. So if you have done the hard work and you have rolled out, I mean, chances are you will, as an institution, get a lot more mileage than the second or the third player. And that is what is seen even in people who have integrated with NPCI or all of the things that are happening. So there are advantages of doing the hard work and being the first to market, despite your competitors maybe also using the same service.
Yeah, I have a lot of strong opinions about it. So bear with me. I've borne it from both sides as an entrepreneur as well. I actually think large enterprises unnecessarily get hung up over the wrong things here. Right? I think they really struggle to buy from startups, right? Because ultimately, the most important thing for you is that startup stays healthy, right? Because if they go out of business and you invested all this energy to bring them out into the market, then it's a lose-lose for everyone, right? So my view is actually there are multiple things. One is I actually think you can structure a progressive exclusivity, right? Where new things are first rolled out with you, right? Because also when you're rolling something, new features out to the market, its brand value is, it's 3 months, right? After that, you're going to be marketing something else anyways, right? So it's best really if you sort of say, first on ICICI and then had that as the marketing backend. So you get all the benefits of being seen as the innovator, right? And you also get the benefit of more and more innovations coming out from you. And I would rather lock that up and say, look, I don't want any exclusivity, but anything we do together has got to be first with us, and I need to be able to brand it. The other thing that I find is actually, which could be a win-win, which enterprises do very poorly across the world, is get very hung up on the brand, right? And for startups, I think a lot of the value is in trying to build a brand for themselves as well, right? And enterprises struggle to treat startups as partners. They'll always sort of come from the mindset because historically they've been seeing them as vendors, right? And so in many cases, you see the startup saying, I'll also launch it with my brand, and then you create some other name for it, right? And it really shouldn't matter, right? It would be best if you said, look, we use the startup's brand or a neutral brand, but we say it's first with us, right? And that's where you can structure a win-win. Right? I think in terms of your IP going to other competitors of yours, that is the tricky part here. So I think hopefully you're not imparting something to the startup that is so competitive for you, right? If it is, then that part you should welcome.
With respect to that question of computers killing your idea, what is the role of software systems pattern in this particular intellectual property?
It's become a big end in the market and you won't worry about all this patent rubbish.
Whether the United States or India, using a software system patent as a protection against the computers.
I think if you combine what Sanjay said, even if you did file a patent, if you didn't have velocity, it would be really no point. So what Sanjay was saying is that you have to go for velocity, sales velocity. So that's a separate track altogether. It's one thing is to have a patent, which you also want a trademark on the same product. So it's a combination of actually creating trademark value, which is derived from customers' value, right? For the inherent value that that product or platform provides in completing a certain transaction for that customer. The patent
has any personal experiences with this matter of software?
So mind you, especially for startups, right? I think patents are irrelevant. You have to file them, and all my companies, will keep filing patents. But if you look at the first 7 years, which is the crucial phase of a startup, before your first patent gets granted, your story is played out, right? So it is sort of an overhead, and I do advise them to keep filing the patents because it might be valuable later at the point of an M&A or something like that. But it will not impact your success of it.
And even that does not guarantee you any investment, right? So many times I see across slides saying, first saying that we have a patented, doesn't cut anything with investors. So
Patented good, but most people mean patent pending.
Yeah.
Which means they file a provisional application for a patent, right, without even having done any research in the market.
the grant is there. The idea is we want to see the business, right? Business around it. End of the day.
we like patents. That's what has done a VC view. We like patents. We want to see scientifically something different, and that to have a claim strength. And then you have to do business. So there's no, these are not.
Great. So I think we're out of time. I'll just give each of you 15 seconds for a closing remark.
I will go out and build a large enterprise. I would like to see one SAP coming out of India. Just a real enterprise, happy to be one of the largest.
I don't think anybody can top that, but maybe Ashish you can.
I mean, my message would be, just keep at it. While banks and financial institutions, the whole process is root canal, but eventually it's individuals. You have to just focus and keep, hitting them. Eventually, you will break through. It just takes time.
I think with demonetization, GST, 150 million new bank accounts, there is an incredible, unique opportunity to create a massive fintech company here in India.
And also that undoubtedly large enterprises are inefficient. That's your first goal. So there's a huge opportunity. The beauty about the business of funding enterprise innovation, as far as we're concerned, all our investments thus far have been in funding enterprise innovation because it's named account. It's not so difficult to go search for a market, all of that. You're not throwing spray, pray. It's very directed. We like it. It's least as G&A. It's capital efficient as far as G&A spend is concerned. And you can tie to our proposition to a certain set of named accounts. And you can get 3 of the top 10 guys globally if you seek it. So just mentally get there.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Sudhir, Alan, Ashish and Sanjay. And thanks all of you for being a wonderful audience. Let's build those power startups here. Thank you.